Okay, so I'm playing Borderlands on the PC, finished the main story, and now playing through some of the DLC. This is the wave-based arena, Mad Moxie's under dome or something. But doing some multitasking, so playing a bit of this. But I thought I would review the film The Guest. Came out this week. How do you define it? Well, technically it's a thriller, but the filmmakers have a background in horror films, and so it's got a lot of the tropes of horror films that it uses in clever ways, in the way that it uses music and sound, whether it be, certain sound effects used or lack of sound in certain places, and it's almost consciously cheesy at times, but it's at the same time as well as cheesy, it's quite clever. Right, I'll just pause the game for 2 seconds and I'll just read from the synopsis on IMDb. I always find that an interesting point of view. Right. A soldier introduces himself to the Peterson family, claiming to be a friend of their son who died in action. After the young man is welcomed into their home, a series of accidental deaths seem to be connected to his presence. Well, that's a fairly... that's true. So what happens? Dan Stevens plays a character called David. Good name, like mine. Like me, he was in the army with Caleb, the dead son and brother of the Peterson family. He tells the family he was recently left the army, and said that he'd come and see and check up on his family for them and make sure they're alright and help them if needed, which he certainly does. David is played by Dan Stevens, as I said, who is a British actor best known for appearing in probably Downton Abbey, which I've never seen, so I don't know if he's any good in that or if Downton Abbey's any good. But here, he does a great job playing David. A very, I suppose, an odd role, but as the nature of who David really is not clear throughout the whole film, and you don't necessarily want all the answers throughout the whole film. It's the mystery of who he is part of the enjoyment of finding out what's going on with the film. So he introduces himself to the mother of his former friend and colleague, Caleb. She at first is upset to meet someone who reminds her of her dead son, that she's rightfully and obviously upset about him dying, but she gets used to it, and he doesn't have any plans, as he's just come out of the army himself, and she offers to let him stay. At first he agrees to stay just for the night, and then when the rest of the family meet him and the husband comes home from work, they eventually get used to having him there, and he stays for a few more days. But as the synopsis from IMDb said, strange things keep happening around the local town. Not necessarily things that you would expect. It's a quiet town in the middle of, I don't quite know what state it's set in, but it's a quiet town. Not a lot happens. People don't normally get killed to the rate that they do. When the character of David is around. You know, is it him? Is it just a coincidence? That's part of the enjoyment of the film, and seeing why what happens. It's definitely not a horror film, although, as I say, the filmmakers come from that background, but it is definitely I suppose a creepy thriller would probably be the best way of describing it. Very effective. Eventually, there would have been 3 children, the Peterson family. Caleb, who's never seen on screen because he dies prior to the film starting in presumably Afghanistan, and let's just get the names right. Let's see. And there is Anna, played by Micah Monroe, or Maker, and Luke, who's the sort of younger brother, probably 14, 15, and the Anna is 20, just nearly 21, which is mentioned in the film. She's working in a local diner while she's saving up to go to college. So at one point, she's the one who gets suspicious of David, not everything adding up with him. Him almost seeming too good to be true, the way he acts and is, and I was reading that the filmmakers were inspired by the original Terminator films, and the way that Dan Stevens plays the character feels almost influenced in a way by Terminator. He's very robotic, almost emotionless in some respects. He has a job to do, so he believes, so he acts, and he does what he thinks needs to do to help Peterson family. Morally, it probably isn't what most normal people would do to help people, but nonetheless, he does it. We discover, as the film goes on, I wouldn't say it's a spoiler because the character appears in the trailer for the film. We discover that some military types are after this David character, led by he plays Broyles in Fringe, is probably where I know him best from, and he is head of a organisation that I suppose is military based, and he goes looking for the David character. Do apologise, it's multitasking is all very well, but you're trying to run around killing annoying little alien type things in a video game. You can get distracted when you're also trying to think of the right words to say when talking about a film. But so that bit's seen in the film trailer, so we know to some extent what's coming. I'm not going to spoil the film by saying such and such happens, but it's there are very clever bits within the film. It's Dan Stevens has a good role and does a good job at, I suppose, playing that role, really. It could be really cheesy in the wrong hands, but his portrayal works for me. I've not seen him in anything else. I know he's British, obviously, not everyone's British in Downton Abbey, but he is. And he actually does a very good American accent. It's not noticeable. Having just recently reviewed and watched Into the Storm, I wasn't so impressed with Richard Armitage's American accent, which I thought was distracting at times. I don't know whether that's partly because I've seen Richard Armitage in more things and I'm used to his normal voice, but I wasn't impressed with his voice as much as, you know, the Dan Stevens American accent in this film. So, if you like thrillers, creepy or not, mainstream, you know, if you're, whatever your taste, you'll get something from this film. It's very well written, it's directed with a dark, you know, the film's got a dark humour to it. It's clever the way that, you know, it's set around Halloween, so there's a sort of creepy motifs of carving a pumpkin with a giant knife that David's character, you know, the character of David happens to have, being in the military, and of that mindset, which works. And then the finale sort of end portion of the film, not going to ruin, but is clever use of the time of year and you know, haunted houses and ghost train type idea, and works really well. It's a clever use of the time of year, and clearly they chose to set it at Halloween for a reason. It works very well as that. You know, it does a good job at being a creepy, not altogether, you know, it's, I hate to use the word because it can be a bit of a cliche, but it is very, I don't know, quirky on some level, but it's not quirky for the sake of it. You know, it does a good job at being weird in a clever way, you know, and it's not over the top weird. It's an enjoyable weird and a good weird. It's a good weird film. It's not to everyone's taste. I'm sure some people think that this film's a bit odd. It's not, you know, it's not a mainstream thriller necessarily in the way that some films may be classed, but is that a bad thing? I'd say no. You know, it's not a pretentious film. It's you know, it's an enjoyable thriller with, you know, unexpected bits, even with, you know, in hindsight, the trailer could be seen as spoilerific on some level, although I do believe pretty much all trailers, so if you go back and watch the film trailer after having seen the film, you'll go, well, that you know, that bit in the film was from the end, or, you know, trailers are completely out of context sections of films to try and show the film in the best light. You know, I thought the trailer was okay, and I didn't know much more than that when I went in to see it, and so on some level I was pleasantly surprised. It does a good job of what it does. You know, if you don't get a chance to see it at the cinema, then I'd recommend, you know, this is if you're into watching things on Netflix, then when it comes out, you know, I'd definitely go and watch this, or do the old-fashioned thing of buying it on, you know, Blu-ray preferably, or DVD. I don't know if you can actually rent things physically anymore, but if you're into that, then do that. You know, watch this film if you're into good films, and hopefully, you know, you'll get something enjoyable from it. It's I think the sort of horror theme even goes right back to the font and colour of the actual title of the guest. It's quite a ominous title, or what does it mean? It's, you know, it's a true title in the sense that he is a guest of the Petersons, but is there more to it? Yeah, definitely. There's definitely more to it. You'll want to find out what, though, so you're only going to do that by watching it. Okay. Thanks for watching / listening to me ramble on about a film while I play a bit of Borderlands.